Hey crafty friends, it's Joy here. Welcome back to my channel. Today I have a Christmas card from my Handmade Christmas series using my Stamptember collaboration with Colorado Craft Company. I haven't used this stamp set yet. This was the Catch a Star. So it was Simon Says Stamp and Colorado Craft Company. This makes a 5x7 card. I mean, I think you could probably do an A2 size. You might have to trim some things off, but we're going to make a 5x7. And when I saw the stamp set, I knew the idea I wanted to make, but I just didn't get around to using it. So I decided to turn the same idea into a Christmas card. So we're going to start off by ink blending. You can see that I also have a moon mask down at the bottom because we're going to have a moon in this. Yes, for Christmas we're going to have this cute moon. I have started to ink blend. Well, I'm ink blending with two reds in Distress Oxide colors. The first one is Candied Apple. That's the color I'm laying down now. Then I'm going to use the new Lumberjack Plaid, and then we're going to bring in some black soot around the edge. So this is just a really fun card. I love this card. So it's reds and golds. That's the main color. And then of course we've got this cute little rat. I think it's a rat, or maybe it could be a mouse. It could be either one. I kind of feel like it's a rat, but he is catching a star. And so in my mind, it's a Christmas star. And so that's kind of the story I have in my head. Here is that Lumberjack Plaid around the edges. Again, keeping that mask. This is Tim Holtz moon mask. This is the largest one. I'm just keeping that in place so we can create our moon here in just a little bit. Now I have black soot around the edges, and I know right now it looks like a hot mess, but you know with ink blending it takes a minute. You kind of have to go back and forth with the colors, but I think that's what's so wonderful about ink blending. Now I'm going to use that Lumberjack Plaid again. I will go over the black soot to kind of blend that down to make it softer so it's not like so much black in your face. And then once again, the Candied Apple in the center. I've started with this background first because this is going to need to dry because we will be using some stencil paste on this. So I'm going to finish ink blending here in the center, and then we can go back one more time with that Lumberjack Plaid around the edges. A little bit more of the black soot because I don't want to take all of it away, and then one more time kind of through. And then as you can see, this is getting a really nice blend. And again, this is a 5x7 piece of cardstock. This is some Nina cardstock, so it's big. It took a second to color. Okay, for my moon, I am using Scattered Straw, Fossilized Amber, and Wild Honey. This made a really good gold looking moon because that's what I wanted. I wanted it to have this really gold feel because we're going to be using some Lawn Fawn gold stencil paste with a star stencil on the background. So I'm just going to blend that down. Then with these moon masks, you have your second part that's going to add the details to your moon. So we're going to use that here in just a second. So let's just do a little bit more blending. I wanted a little bit darker towards the bottom and a little bit lighter at the top. I'm going to clean up my work surface, get all of that extra ink that's off of the sides where I did all that ink blending. And look at how pretty that background is. Now, I'm going to put the original moon mask back over because I want to do some stencils. Now, this is a Tim Holtz stencil, I think from 2 years ago, a Stamptember. I think it was, or it was something that it wasn't, you can't get all the time. So I'll try to find something equivalent to this, but I have this placed in the center. I love how this curves around, but obviously any star stencil would look beautiful. This is Lawn Fawn's gold stencil paste, and it is so yummy, you guys. I absolutely love it. This is going to soak up some of the color from the ink blending, but it kind of turns these a little more orangey gold than yellowy gold, and either way, it is stunning when it's done. But look at how pretty that is against that red background. I want to bring in a little bit more stenciling down here at the bottom, and I'm going to do a little bit more at the top left. I didn't want to overdo, but I did want a good amount of stars. Oh my gosh, it's so pretty. I was so in love with this when I was doing it. I couldn't believe how well it turned out. It made me so, so happy. I'm just trying to figure out my stenciling so I don't put it in the other stencil paste that's not dry. Obviously, if you had more time, you could set this aside to dry and really get it close together. But honestly, I think it came out just perfect. So I wasn't super worried about it. So let me just finish up that. I will wash everything off when I'm done. Then we can remove this moon mask. And I will say, I should have washed my stencil. That was my son's hand. He was in here talking with me. I should have washed my stencil before I did the moon mask. I didn't. I thought I was going to be quick enough, and some of it did dry on there, but I was able to get it off enough and it'll be fine. But I should have walked away and washed it off. So we can peel back this moon mask. And then we can add the other part to the moon. And I want to be able to see some of the extra. So see this part here. So I'm going to turn it to the right just a little bit so we also still can see a lot of the moon and the ink blending that we did on the moon. So I've got that in place. I'm going to tape that down and then use that same gold stencil paste from Lawn Fawn and just smear it across. And then it's going to look so, so fabulous. Just wait till I peel this back. And I think the red and gold is what gives it this Christmas color, or excuse me, the Christmas feel. Of course it's a Christmas color, but also the sentiments that I'm going to be using. So definitely hang on for those because those are really, really cute. Okay, let's do our stamping of this image. Again, this is the Catch a Star from the Simon Says Stamp Colorado Crafts Stamptember 2022 release. I laid down my stamp and then I'm lining up my die cut because it has that long thin area. Sometimes I've encountered, I think I just didn't lay down the stamp correctly, so maybe it was a little bit crooked with the long skinny part of the clear stamp material, the photopolymer stamp material. And then when I tried to line up my coordinating die, it did not. So I was making sure, because I only wanted to color this once, that my die lined up with where I stamped it. Then there's a few stars in the stamp set. These stars are the ones that have coordinating dies, so I decided to just stamp those so I could die cut those out because I don't want to fussy cut anything. Now we're gonna color this cute little critter. I started with W5, 3, and 1. And then I quickly realized that my W1 marker needs to be refilled and I don't have a refill for it. So I changed my coloring to W3, 5, and 7. So he's a little bit darker than I had originally planned, but actually it worked out totally fine and he looked really, really good. So I'm coloring all of the lightest color with the W3. Then here is that W5. I'm making it just a little bit darker. And then the W7 will be just my darker shadow areas. I'm also using R30 for the inside of his ears, and I gave him or her a little cheek, a little rosy cheek with that R30. But he is coming together so, so cute. And what a fun little image. Then for the net that's going to be catching the stars, I'm using T1, 3, and 5. So I'm keeping it still in the gray colors, but different than the little critter here. I am adding a little bit of dots with the T5 on his, or excuse me, with the W7 on his body, not the T5. Then I am using the T colors for this net here. And I am just kind of being a little messy about the coloring because that's kind of the way it's drawn, like in a good way, like that's a compliment. And so I'm just following along with that, not coloring in the net perfectly, which I think it turned out really, really pretty. Then for the stars, I'm using Y08, 35, and 38. So there's lots of stars on this background, and I'm actually going to bring in some more stars from Trinity Stamps, and it just gives it a really, really fun look. I'm just using my snips to die cut my, or to cut my dies apart so we can get this taped into place and we can run it through the die cut machine. I'm just using a Platinum 6 die cut machine, which works perfect on big images like this. It's plenty big. And then of course we have the little stars here. And I'm glad that there's 3 that I could die cut out because I do love an odd number. Then we have from Simon Says Stamp the Believe die. So you have the shadow and the sentiment part. I am die cutting all of it from gold mirror cardstock. So one cut for the shadow and 2 for the Believe sentiment part. And I'm going to adhere that together. I just wanted to keep in that gold theme. I didn't want to add any other color to this because we will be bringing in another sentiment that will have a little bit of white. I did also off camera trim this card panel down slightly smaller than a 5x7 because I do want to have a white mat around it when I adhere it to the card base. I added a little bit of black glaze pen to his eye, and then I'm going to pop him up. So my whole thought was that he is standing on the moon catching the Christmas star. So originally it was he was standing on the moon catching a star, and then because I didn't get to use it up until now, I changed it to a Christmas star, which I am so glad because I just love this card. It's a very different type Christmas card, but I think everyone has someone in their life that probably would very much appreciate it. So I'm just going to make sure he looks correct the way he's standing on the moon, and he is going to be catching a nice big fun star. So I'm going to use the stars that I colored and die cut for what he's catching. Now I want to adhere the Believe to the shadow, and then normally I adhere the 2 Believes together and then to the shadow. I don't know what I was thinking, but I mean it worked fine that I did it this way, but usually I do it the other way. With a little bit of liquid glue, and then my reverse tweezers always help. Let's add the second layer. This is going to give that some great dimension. And then I also have the little dots to the eyes that I don't want to leave out. So I have those set aside, and we can get those adhered down. But I think this is a great sentiment for this card. So let me get those little eyes dotted. I'm just going to use my crystal katana to pick those up and put them in place. This is also going to have some foam tape behind it, but this is basically how the sentiments are going to go. It doesn't really cover up too much of the image. It fills in that little open space that also doesn't really have a lot of stars. So it works perfectly. I want to make sure I don't have foam tape going over the handle of the net because that is already popped up with foam tape, so I left that open. And I can peel back the release paper and put this in place. I'm also using Tailored Expressions Simple Strips Christmas. I had 2 that I was kind of wondering which ones I wanted to use. This says May Your Season Sparkle, which I think is so perfect with all of the stars. So that's going to be popped up with foam tape, and I'm just going to put that right underneath the Believe. So now we have our sentiments, and then we can do some finishing details. Let's get these stars up with some foam tape. All of this is going to have dimension. So that's the Christmas star that's in my mind that he's going to be catching or trying to catch. And then just these other 2 little stars scattered on the background. Then I can bring in the Trinity Stamps gold stars, and they are so pretty. There's like 3 different sizes, which I absolutely love. So let's get some of those in place. And what I liked about adding these is that these sparkle different than that stencil paste. So that sparkles in its own unique way, and then you have these that sparkle just a little bit differently. So I just think it really turned out fabulous. I also did want to mention the top left where I added a little bit of stenciling. When I took my stencil off, I think I slid it and it just kind of smeared a little bit the stars, but I didn't stress about it because, again, this is a homemade card. It's not the end of the world. It still looks good, and your recipient probably will not even notice it. But I forgot to mention that earlier, and so if you notice that, yep, I did leave it on there, and it is totally okay. Now that I have all of those adhered, I can place this on the 5x7 white card base, and having that white frame around it just makes the red pop even more. So let's look at this card up close. Look at that background. Look at all the different with the mirror cardstock, the gold stars, and the stencil paste. Everything just kind of shines and sparkles differently. I love this card. This is so much fun. Thank you guys so very much for stopping by and watching. I hope that you feel inspired, and I hope that you enjoyed this video. I also hope you guys have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Bye.